We meet again, my friend. We are back. Sorry I couldn't be here last night. My goodness, that was a day at work yesterday. But here we are. We're back together. And boy, am I glad we are. Hey, you guys know that I've been following the case of the murder of Judge Kevin Mullins for quite some time, right? Basically since September, when shockingly he was murdered on camera. And the person who murdered him, I'm gonna use the word murder. Maybe kill is more apropos because he hasn't been convicted of murder. But the man who shot him dead, let's say, was his sheriff and former bailiff and longtime friend, a sheriff named Sean Mickey Steins. This might be the craziest case in all of true crime. Seldom do we see a judge as the victim. Seldom do we see a sheriff as the perpetrator. And even more seldom do we see both of those in one single case. And this, what's kind of crazy about, well, there's so many things that are crazy about this case. But one of the craziest things is that it appears that a completely unrelated case may have been the seed that grew into the giant sequoia tree of a crime that we have here. That's a terrible metaphor, but you guys get it, right? And that case has to do with Mickey Stein's deputy at the time, a man named Ben Fields. Now, Mr. Fields was accused and convicted of some pretty horrible essay against female inmates that he was in charge of their home release. He was the ankle monitor guy. And it appears that shortly after he was convicted, well, I don't know how shortly, but after he was convicted, a civil rights lawsuit was filed by this guy, a man named Ned Pillersdorf. We've had him here on the program before. Basically alleging that not only was Mr. Fields responsible, but that Mr. Steins, his boss, should have known. Either he did know or he should have known about the abuse that was being perpetrated by Mr. Fields. By the way, this is Mr. Fields' offender registry photo now. So anyway, the reason I'm giving you this long-winded introduction, been going at it for like 3 minutes now. The reason I'm giving you this long-winded introduction is because last week we had on the program Elizabeth Jones from Hillbilly Crime. Elizabeth Jones is about one of the best ever, right? She lives in Letcher County. She has a YouTube channel. She has a master's degree in criminal justice. She is a perfect person to talk to, and she is the first person that I thought of when I obtained a couple of depositions in this civil case. And so she has been covering them at length on her channel. She and I talked about them last week here on this channel, and this week, over the next several days, we are going to be going over some of these depositions. Today, we're going to be going over part of this deposition, which is the deposition of Sheriff Mickey Steins. Now, this deposition is 196 pages, y'all. It's long. Now, depositions are typically written in double space and all that, so it's really not that long. But in today's video, we're going to go through about half of it, but we're not going to read all of it. Don't even worry about it. What I do want you to worry about, however, is making sure that you're active in the live chat. And anytime you want me to see something, we're going to be going to your comments. I would like you to put GF in the comments, okay? So just do that for me and we will be going through this. Now, I nearly missed starting on time because I was so deeply enthralled in this this deposition, but I've made myself some notes. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, 6 places that I want to focus on. Okay. First, let's introduce the crew. Okay, on behalf of the plaintiff is Sabrina Adkins and Jennifer Hill's estate. She sadly died before, after the lawsuit was filed, but before the depositions could be taken place. Okay, so these are our plaintiffs. They are represented by Mr. Ned Pillersdorf, but in this case, the questioner is his partner, the Honorable Bethany Baxter. So anytime we see Baxter, that is an attorney for the plaintiffs. On behalf of the defendants are the Honorables, Jonathan Shaw, Daniel Dotson, and Jason Williams. Also, Dawn Jones, and then Ms. Adkins is joining them by Zoom. Okay, so let's skip on down to page 8. And I wanted to start, I wanted to delete these because I figured it all out. Okay, starting at line 8. Okay, Ms. Baxter is questioning Mr. Steins. So the lawyer is questioning the sheriff. This is before he went and shot Mr. Or Judge Mullins, I should say. Judge. This deposition happened on a Monday. Ned Pillersdorf told me he was acting strangely. He, meaning Sheriff Steins. And so when we read this together, think about that. Think about Ned saying he was acting strangely, because I think it's hard to read in these kinds of things a person's behavior, but pay close attention to his answers and maybe pay close attention to how easily confused he is. I kind of feel like there are a couple things that could be happening here. The less likely is that he doesn't understand the questions. The more, because of some, intelligence deficit on his end. I don't think that is the case. It's possible, but I don't think it's the case. Number 2, maybe he is under an extreme amount of anxiety because of what is going on in his county. Perhaps he's part of a good old boys network that is conspiring to do terrible things in Letcher County, Kentucky, or perhaps he is not part of that good old boys network and maybe is the fall guy of that good old boys network. I don't even know. I have no idea. No clue. But pay attention to how he answers. We're gonna read about 7 pages here, but they're short. Okay, starting on line 8 here. Ms. Baxter says, okay, what was your father's name? Steins goes, I don't know who my biological dad is. Okay, fair. So did you go to college, she asks. Southeast Community College. Here in Whitesburg? Yes. Okay. Did you graduate from Fleming Neon High School? Yes. What did you study at Southeast? Just basics. I only got 26 hours. Okay. And where are you going to school? And I think that meant to say, were you going to school full time? Yes, and I had a job, was his answer. Okay, what was your job? I worked at Neon BP. Okay, so I would guess that that's probably a gas station. Neon is the town. Okay, what was your employment after you left Southeast Community College? Let me get these out of the way so they don't distract us. Well, he says, I was at Neon BP for a little while. Okay, what about that? What about after that? I went to Fleming Neon Police Department. Okay, what year did you start with the Fleming Neon Police Department? 2001, I believe, was his answer. How long did you work at the Fleming Neon Police Department? 7 months. And why did you leave that job? She asks. Cutbacks. What was your position at the Fleming Neon Police Department? His answer is, I was a patrol officer. Baxter asks, okay, so cutbacks. You lost your job. What did you do after that? I drew unemployment for some time. I don't know exact date. What after that? I went to work for the sheriff's office. Okay, who was the sheriff when you went to work for the sheriff's office? Answer is Steve Banks. Steve Banks. And what year would that have been? 2002. These are bothering me. Okay. Was the training you received as a deputy sheriff different from the training that you received as a parole officer? Do you want me to repeat that question? Yeah. And then Mr. Shaw is a lawyer. Are you talking about, did he go to the academy twice? And then the question is, do you have to go to the academy as a police officer? Yes. And so that same academy you would go to as a new deputy sheriff? And then his answer is, let's talk. And I think he's talking to his lawyer. Mr. Shaw, yeah, let's. Ms. Baxter, okay, we can take a break. A break is taken. Question. I think the last question that I had was the academy training that you received as a patrol officer, the same as the academy training that you would have received as a Letcher County Sheriff's deputy. His answer. And Elizabeth told us a little bit about this, but here's his answer. When I was policing at Neon, I got laid off because of money. They couldn't send me to the academy, so I actually never attended. No police academy. Ms. Baxter follows up with, okay, so did you attend the academy in 2002 when you went to work for the Letcher County Sheriff's Office? Mr. Shaw, this is the lawyer, that was the point of confusion. There are different types of academy training. Ms. Baxter, that is what I'm trying to figure out. Mr. Shaw, he went to the academy, but not. Let me explain his academy training. And Ms. Baxter says, let's let him testify for himself, which was awesome. Okay, so back to Mr. Steins. He says, so the deputy sheriff has an academy that's 20 weeks long. Court security officers have an academy that is 2 weeks, and you have different types of training for both. So when I was initially hired for Stephen Banks, they put me through pre-pops, and I was about to work the road and work the court and stuff. Okay. So you did both the deputy training and the CSO training? That is a fair question. His answer, I have never attended the academy. That is what you first asked when I first with. You have got a year to attend. Okay. After that, sorry guys, I wanted those stupid highlights. After that, I worked for Stephen Banks for 7 months. Danny Webb came in. I worked the road and court for Danny. During that time, Danny comes to me and says, do you want to be a road officer or court officer? And I said, I will be court security. And he said, we can get you grandfathered in. And I had to take all their steps to be a court security officer. Then Ms. Baxter says, okay, I just want to make sure that I understand. So 2002 is when you first went to work for the Letcher County Sheriff's Office. Yes. Why don't you just tell me what training you did when you first came on board? Answer, when I originally went for Neon, I had to take all of the pre-pops, that is the fitness. Ms. Baxter, sorry, we didn't turn the audio back on. Okay, whatever. Question, pre-pops, okay? Once you do that, you can take the other training at the academy. Neon laid me off, and I didn't get to go to that one. Okay, that makes sense. So did you end up doing that training after you went to the Letcher County Sheriff's Office? Answer, not the full 20-week academy. No, ma'am. Why not? The position that they put me in, the state didn't require me to attend that. And what was that position? Court security officer. That is helpful, she says. So then when Webb came in 7 months later, I think that I understood you to say that he asked you what position that you wanted and what was your response to him. Answer, when he came in, that was 2003, I believe. I worked the road and court security. Years later, he asked me, do you want to go to the academy? And I said, no, I'm going to stay in court. And he said, okay. So Ms. Baxter again goes, okay, do you have to do the 20 weeks of deputy training to work the road? Answer, can we talk? Just if you know. And then, just for the record, his attorney says, he and I don't know how long ago it was. He suffers from California encephalitis. I had to look this up. It's a tick-borne illness. So he says, so when he is under stress, sometimes it causes some issues, which begs the question, as a sheriff, aren't you under stress sometimes? Like, isn't that a normal thing? Like, am I going crazy here? No, that would be a normal thing, right? And so he's blaming that he has California encephalitis and it causes issues. But from my brief lookup of California encephalitis, I didn't see this as being an issue, but whatever. Okay. Ms. Baxter, she says, I've never heard of that. Mr. Shaw, it is something that you get from a tick bite. Blah, blah, blah. Well, if we need to take more breaks, I will be happy to do that. And if you don't know the answer, and that is fine to say that you don't know. Let me talk with him for a second. We will be right back. So Ms. Baxter says, we're off the record. A break was taken. Okay, back on the record. I think that I was asking you if you had to do the 20 weeks of deputy training to work the roads. Yes, but you did not do that training under Sheriff Banks, correct? No. Did you ever get that training under Sheriff Webb? No. Okay, did you get that training after that you became sheriff? No. Okay, and that's where I wanted to stop. So the point here, guys, the point is that, I mean, according to him, when he started, he didn't need to do the training, and then he just decided never to do the training. And I mean, I'm a guy whose most of my knowledge has come through experience, right? So I'm not saying that you can't be a cop or a good cop and not go to having not gone to an academy. You can still be a good cop and learn on the job and so forth. But it is pretty interesting to me that he never received formal training beyond a 2 weeks thing that he said he did. Let's go over to your comments, shall we? Let me just refresh my thing. Let's hide this. Winona says, Gavin, the number of improperly or not completely trained law enforcement officers out there is scary. Mooney, I'm seeing because it's in caps. So why is he a cop? Right? You know, sheriffs are elected positions. I mean, like, I think in all states, sheriffs are elected positions. But I know in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, if you are elected sheriff, you must go to a training. And most people who are elected sheriff are already law enforcement. Yeah. Mooney says most unqualified law enforcement officer ever. Yeah. All right. So let's see. There was one up here. Something is different about Gavin. He looks younger. Gavin had to shave down his beard. Gavin messed up as he was trimming his beard. I'm like Terry Crews talking in the third person. Terry doesn't like that. I was trying to shape my beard, guys, over the weekend, and I slipped and messed up and so I had to knock it down. Maybe I look younger. Maybe I just look more round-faced, but I'll tell you this, in the Pennsylvania winter right now, my chin is cold right now. Okay. Let's go. All right, we're going to go down to the next page, and we're going to talk a little bit about how they used to say in the Bill Clinton days, sexual harassment. All right, line 24. Here we go. Ms. Baxter is doing the questioning again, okay? Or still. Question: have you ever been responsible for investigating sexual harassment, sexual misconduct, or discrimination in any position that you have held? And it appears there's a pause, and Mr. Shaw, the attorney, goes, have you? Or we can talk for a second if you want to. The answer: I am not understanding her question. Okay, that to me is just absolute. You don't understand the question. All right. So Ms. Baxter has to rephrase the question. So think of all the jobs that you have had in your lifetime, including your job as sheriff. Have part of the duties of any of those jobs been to investigate sexual harassment, sexual misconduct, or sex discrimination? Mr. Shaw, the lawyer, pipes in. I think that she is including this case too. What happened when you received work about this case? He goes, okay. Have you had other incidents of allegations? And then the question, if you have questions, I would rather rephrase the question. I know you're trying to be helpful, Jonathan. So they're being like courteous. Do you understand the question? No, not really. Mickey doesn't understand this question. Okay, let's start here. Have you ever, in your capacity of sheriff, have you ever investigated a complaint of sexual harassment or sexual misconduct? And Mr. Shaw then answers or asks, do you mean him individually? Has he investigated? The question again, has he as sheriff ever investigated sexual harassment or sexual misconduct? And then Mickey Shaw's answer is, can we talk a second? I am not. And then a break was taken. Crazy. Okay. Back from the break, Mr. Shaw says, for clarification, I think that I understand what you're saying. Are you talking about internal allegations within the department, or are you talking about somebody from the street coming in and saying, my daddy is essaying me? Ms. Baxter responds, I am talking about in your role of sheriff related to employment, employees' sexual harassment, sexual misconduct. Does that make sense now? Yes. Okay, so have you ever been responsible for conducting such an investigation? Answer, this is the only one. Okay. Answer, I immediately reported it, took action, reported it to the state police. They declined. And I talked to the Commonwealth attorney, the county attorney. And she says, and I will ask you more questions about this case later. I was just wondering, have you at any other time investigated harassment? Okay, that's where I wanted to go to. That was one of those indications to me. Now it might be lost in transcription, right? Like I know that when you are having a deposition, attorneys will frequently, they will advise you only answer if you understand the question and only answer the minimum amount possible, right? So trying to extend a little grace here. It's possible that he didn't want to ask her, do you mean investigating crimes outside the department or investigating my employees? He could have just done that, but he did not. But it did indicate to me that like what Ned Pillersdorf told me when he was on, and told all of us when he was on, law enforcement officers are typically a little more confrontational, a little more assertive, a little more, he didn't say it this way, but it kind of reminded me of the Jack Nicholson character in A Few Good Men, right? Just kind of like, yeah, come at me, bro, kind of attitude. And Mickey Steins is not displaying that kind of attitude here. And of course, just 4 days later, after doing this deposition, this is what Mickey Steins would be doing in the judge's chambers to his friend and co-worker that he worked with for a long, long time, Judge Kevin Mullins, who is now dead from 7 gunshot wounds, something like that. It's crazy. Crazy, crazy, crazy. All right, let's run over here. We'll bring up, yeah, we're gonna keep our victim up here. And let me come over here. Mopar or no car gave me a super chat. Thank you very much for that. I appreciate that. See if there are any other things that you guys want to. Becca says, Gavin, you look great. We need your skincare routine. Okay, you guys are getting me off on a tangent, but I'm gonna tell you what my skincare routine is, because months ago I was at Josh and Sandy Greenberg's house, and Sandy was telling me about her skincare regimen, and I was teasing her a little bit because, and you know, my wife does the same. My daughters, they all have these skincare regimens, right? My skincare regimen is when I hop in the shower, I get a bar of Irish Spring, I suds it up in my hands, and I lather it upon my face. And then I go into the shower and I rinse it off. That is it. That is what I do. And Sandy thought it was hilarious. Donna is saying I do look younger. Okay, so you guys, I should keep my beard a little better trimmed. Built to help art. Yes, the hair is getting long, guys. It is getting long, and it is annoying and looks terrible. But we will be. I'm working toward being able to donate hair, and I'm going to do my best. Okay, getting off of me for a second. Tammy says, so he's cop adjacent. That's a great way to put that. Yeah, he's cop adjacent. Hey, happy 11 months, Mooney. Pretty amazing. Mooney's our OG. She's our OG. All right. Let's get back over here. Demon Hugger. Hold on before we go. Let me hide. What am I doing? Hide this. Bring up this. Demon Hugger says, if I used Irish Spring on my face would remove itself. And Tammy says, that's my daddy's routine too. So adorable, and he's 84, and I bet he looks great. Irish Spring is the fountain of youth. Definitely is. Also, listen, I know that I was getting away from this, but guys, if you just gain weight, it stretches out your skin. It's horrible. Horrible. I should be looking after myself. All right, here we go. Let's go to here. Where am I going? I'm going down to page 21, and we're going to go down to line 12. Okay. This is where he gets into East Kentucky Correctional or Correction Solutions. This is the company that does the ankle monitor. Okay. We're going to do this for a few pages. Ms. Baxter says, I want to get a better feel for your job duties with East Kentucky Correction Solutions. Remember, Mickey Steins was once the bailiff for his victim, Judge Kevin Mullins. And while he was the bailiff of Judge Mullins' court, he also moonlighted as a guy who put on ankle monitors. All right. So, am I correct that you worked, I'm going to call it EKCS today for short. You worked for EKCS at the same time that you were a deputy sheriff, correct? Yes. Okay. How did you come to get that job? He says Judge Wood and Harold Bowling. Who are they? Judge James T. Wood and County Attorney Harold Bowling. Was Wood district or circuit? District. Did they offer you the job? They came to me and said, we got a job opportunity for you, house arrest, if you want it. Okay. Do you know why they were the ones to approach you about the job? I guess because they worked that court. They had already worked that court before I even started working there, and they needed somebody. Remember, this is all in like a Kentucky accent, right? So the the grammar and the vernacular makes sense when you're doing it in a Southern accent. I'm just out of respect because I have a terrible Southern accent. I will use my own. Okay, did they work for EKCS themselves? No, ma'am. Okay, so who was the first person with EKCS who you met? That was Patty, is his answer. Now, Patty, I always thought that Patty was a court employee. But it turns out that no, Patty works for EKCS. Okay, and what do you recall about that initial meeting? I had to go to Pikeville and take some training. What kind of training? She basically brought me in and showed me all of the paperwork and showed me how to hook everything up. Showed me how all of the equipment worked, how to put the leg strap together with the clamps. I believe that was it. Okay, and I believe Miss Stockham, Patty Stockham, testified you worked for EKCS for about 20 years. Does that sound correct? No. How long did you work for EKCS? 14 to 16 approximately. Years? Yes. So would you have started in, what would that have been? 2005? About? Yeah, maybe 2004. Okay, how were you paid for that work? This blows me away. Contract labor. I believe once a month I would get a certain amount commission, and then at the end of the year I would get a 1099. So you were paid on commission? Yes. Do you recall how that commission was calculated? Per person that was on, I got $3 a day and $25 for hookup. Do you recall roughly how much you would have made year to year at that job? No. For example, Ben Fields in 2021 made over $30,000. Did you ever make that much in a single year? Yes. You did? Yes. Was that about the average that you would make is $30,000? No, it would be different every year. But you are saying that there was years that you made $30,000? Yes. I think he's being a little evasive there, by the way. Okay. So you just described the training that you got up in Pikeville when you first got hired. Were you trained on any annual basis after that initial training? He says, at one time while I was doing house arrest, we got a different type of equipment. She came in and trained me on that equipment, just the hookup, the process, and all that. Okay, aside from that training, was there any additional training you got from EKCS? I don't believe so. Talk about the easiest, most cush way to make 30 GER in a year, man. That is nuts. Okay, I guess as far as persons on home incarceration, was it your responsibility to make sure that they abided by the court order relating to the terms of that home incarceration? What was your question again? Sorry. So, for the folks on home incarceration, was it your responsibility as home incarceration officer to make sure they abided by the terms of the home incarceration? You guys understand that question, right? The terms of the home incarceration? Yes. Okay, and the terms of the home incarceration, who sets those? His answer, the court and the contract. So the judge can say this person is allowed to go here or there. Is that what you mean by that might be in the court order? Yes, and the statute. Okay. Anything else that kind of would dictate the terms of someone's home incarceration aside from the statute and the judge's order? I feel like there was a pause here. He didn't know what to say. Mr. Shaw pipes in and goes, "Do you know the answer?" And the answer is, I didn't do a lot of them, but judges do verbal. What do you mean by judges do verbal? Mr. Shaw, do you want to give her an example? Answer. So when I have a violation, I would report it to the judge. And at times they would say, put them in jail. And I would call down to the jail. Okay, and would you be the one then to transport that person to the jail? Answer, a lot of mine was at the courthouse. So the violation was discussed in the presence of the person on home incarceration? Yes. So is that what you mean when you said judges did verbal? Yes. Do you remember? Let's see, what page am I on? 26? Yeah, I've got a few more pages. Do you remember signing any kind of employment contract with EKCS related to your employment with them? What was the question again? Sorry. See, he seems distracted. That is a very simple question. Question again. Did you ever sign any kind of employment contract or agreement with EKCS related to your work for them? Not to my knowledge, no. Was it ever the case that during the time that you were working for EKCS, were you also the court security officer? Yes. I'm going to use the term bailiff because I understand that to be the same thing. Is that fair? Yes. So were you the bailiff in district court or circuit court? Answer, mainly district. Okay. So were there ever times, by the way, Judge Mullins, district court judge, right? Okay, so were there ever times when you would be working as a bailiff in district court and also put someone's ankle monitor on? He says, no, I had them come after my job. Okay, what do you mean after your job? After court security. Like time of day, what time of day would that be? And he said, I always had them to report at 4:30. Okay, so you would have them come back at 4:30 to get the ankle monitor. Is that what your testimony is? If they was there in court and the judge took them off and they had everything, I would go ahead and take the equipment then. Okay, what about collecting fees? Would you ever collect fees from folks at the same time as you were working as a bailiff in district court? And his answer is, can I ask you a question? And then she goes, Ms. Baxter goes, I would rather that you answer my question. And if you don't recall, that is fine too. Was there ever a time that you can recall when you were working as bailiff in district court and would have collected fees, during that time period when you were working as a bailiff? Mr. Dotson, who is another attorney, chimes in, counsel, do you mean during the day or do you mean the same month? Question, before 4:30. Answer, if they was in court and the judge did an arraignment and they were on house arrest and the judge said pretrial in a month and that it was a Wednesday and they said, Mickey, I have got the money, I would say, hand it here, yeah, and I would go ahead and take it. And give them a receipt, I guess. Yes, all monies that was collected was wrote out in a receipt. Okay, was all monies collected cash? Answer, I'm just trying to remember if I took a check. I mean, I'd done it a long time. I'm not sure if I ever took a check. Mostly money? Mostly. Do you know whether there is any sort of agreement between EKCS and Sheriff Webb or Sheriff Banks related to your work for EKCS? Answer is no. Do you recall there being any policies about secondary employment for Letcher County Sheriff's deputies when you were working there as a deputy? His answer was, I had to get permission from Sheriff Webb. Okay, what did that look like getting permission? He just give verbal. Verbal permission? Yes. Okay. And what Sheriff Banks, do you recall? Or was that before that you started working for EKCS? Probably. Yes. Okay. Aside from you getting permission from Sheriff Webb, was there any relationship between EKCS and the county or the sheriff's office about deputies performing that work? His answer is no. All right. That is the part about him working for East Kentucky Correction Solutions. Let's see what you guys are saying over here. Where am I? Boop. Let's clear that. Patty Olson. It sounds like he had more training for the EKCS than for being sheriff or bailiff. That is funny. That and you're right. Demon hugger, hugging them demons. Gavin, why do I feel like the sheriff's office house arrest people were using potentially mentally vulnerable people to do the shady stuff? I mean, I don't know. I mean, that you have identified a place for abuse of the system for sure. And yeah, it does sound that way. Becca says this sounds so corrupt. Lee says Gavin giving anti-aging tips. Yep, that's me. I am skincare man. All right, the next part I want to talk about was Ben Fields. Okay, remember Ben Fields was his deputy. This is him more recently than this, when he was Deputy Fields. Let's see. Let me go over to here. Here we go. All right, so I need to go down to page 49. Let's skip on down to 49. All right. 49, starting at line 22, and we're going to go to page 50, top of page 54. Okay. This is Ms. Baxter asking the question. After Ben Fields applied for the position with the Sheriff's Department, part of that employment process was doing a lie detector test or something of that nature. Yes, that is the pre-pops. The pre-pops. Do you remember whether you ever reviewed his pre-pops report? Answer, yeah, I am sure that I have looked at it. Mr. Shaw says, just for the record, are you talking about the actual questions and answers, or are you talking about the cover letter that says whether or not they pass? That is, oh my goodness, that is an indication that they have all talked about this before. They knew this line of questioning was coming. Probably because Mickey Steins is the third or fourth person to be deposed in this case, right? So the lawyers would have been involved in those things. So, but this is like foreshadowing, right? If we were in literature, this would be the foreshadowing. Do you mean the actual questions, or do you mean just the cover page? Anyway, Ms. Baxter says, I guess the report is more than one page. What I saw in the records that you produced. So I guess the whole report. Did you look at that report? Mr. Shaw says, if you didn't, that is fine. Answer is, I don't know. She asked me a lot. She's asked me a question, and the polygraph is multiple levels. Did you look through the polygraph? Answer, yes, the questions. They give you a big packet before you take it and stuff. Mr. Shaw, she's not talking about your polygraph. Did you review Ben's, or did you just rely upon the report? The lawyer's like, whoa, Mickey. Whoa, Mickey. Let's bring you back. Okay, so Mickey says, no, I just relied on the report of the examiner. Question. In discovery, you produced a file of stuff that represented Ben Fields' personnel file. Do you recall that? Yes. And included in that report, included in that was a report that included some questions and answers from Ben Fields. Do you recall that? Answer, I would have to look at it. I can't recall. Like you just said, it is a lot. I mean, I don't know what you're talking about. Mr. Shaw pipes in, and I don't know that you would have all of that in his personnel file. They do the review, and I think they mark some of it, but go ahead and ask your questions. Ms. Baxter goes, do you recall seeing in Mr. Fields' employment history an admission by him that on at least one occasion that he consumed alcoholic beverages while at work at the jail? Remember, Mr. Fields, prior to being hired as deputy, worked as a corrections officer at the Letcher County Jail, which is in the basement of the courthouse. I think maybe the sheriff's office is in the courthouse. If it's not, it's close by. Answer, I don't recall. She goes, within those documents that you produced, do you recall seeing an admission by Mr. Fields that while he was employed at the Letcher County Jail, he engaged in sexual contact during work hours at the detention center? No, I don't recall that. If you had have seen that, would you have considered those to be red flags? Answer, that examination, that report that they send in, they recommend suitable. Who is they? It is the Department of Corrections and whatever, the DOCJT, I believe. Mr. Shaw, that is a state background check and state examination. Question, yeah, that is fine. I was just wondering, had you seen that information that he had consumed alcoholic beverages and he had engaged? Just want to make sure. Yeah, you guys are hearing me. All right. That he had consumed alcoholic beverages and that he engaged in sexual contact during work hours at the detention center. Had you known that, would you consider that as red flags in hiring Ben Fields? Answer: they send a report saying that they are suitable for the job. I've got reports that says is not suitable for the job, so I took that as the state recommendation that he pass the exam. He is being evasive here, guys, right? Ms. Baxter, I understand that, but that is not my question. My question is, had you known that he had consumed alcoholic beverages while at work and engaged in sexual contact during work hours of the detention center, would you have considered those red flags in hiring Ben Fields? That is my question. Answer: yeah, I would not condone that type of activity on the job. But your testimony is that you weren't aware of that. Is that correct until today? Ask it again. Have you ever heard anyone say that Ben Fields... No, absolutely not. Before today? That wasn't your question to me earlier. Mr. Shaw says, and she is not talking about the other day when you listened to Fields' testimony about he and his wife would engage in sexual activity. Answer: that wasn't your question. You said when I first hired him earlier, I think was the question. Ms. Baxter: right. Now I'm just trying to figure out when you became aware of that. It sounds like maybe when you listened to Ben Fields' deposition testimony was the first that you heard about it. Yeah, that was the first I heard about it. Okay, I think that might be it. Yeah, that's where I'm going to stop there. So when the report came in to Mickey Steins that this guy was suitable to be a police officer, a sheriff's deputy, Mickey Steins did not look through the answers to the questions in the polygraph. And Mr. Fields apparently was honest and truthful in his polygraph, and it appears that the sexual contact in question was sexual contact with his wife, which makes me go, ew, in a jail? That is the grossest. It's so gross, man. Grosses me out. But okay, let's see what you guys are saying over here. Let's make sure it's refreshed. We're going to hide this, bring this up. Becca says this transcript is fascinating. Yeah, I think that Ms. Baxter's, the level of patience that she was displaying with Sheriff Steins is pretty great. Mooney says, Gavin, I can see why the sheriff was so wigged out after this deposition. He is obviously uncomfortable. Yeah, he wigged out. Oh, Demon Hugger, merch idea, Gavin skincare man. Irish Spring Hawker. Yeah. No, Mickey Steins was freaking out for sure, guys. He's freaking out for sure. This is not, this does not look good for him. 100%. Okay, let's go back over to, I've got just a couple more things here. I know that we're not running long yet, but a couple more things. Okay, so heading down to page 61, and we're going to line 24. This is again talking about Ben Fields. And we're going to go about 7 pages. Okay. Ms. Baxter asks, I want to talk about our involvement in getting Ben Fields, or your involvement, maybe is what that meant, position with East Kentucky Correctional Solutions. Yes. So did you recommend Ben Fields for that position? Yes. Could you no longer work that job after that you became sheriff? Oh yeah, no way. Why not? The job as sheriff is 24/7 hectic. I mean, one day my phone only goes back to 2 p.m. and I had 186 calls from 2 p.m. to 10 p.m. So it is just too hectic. I couldn't juggle. I worked 3 jobs, I just couldn't juggle all of it. So you decided to recommend Ben Fields for that job. What do you recall about your decisions with Patty? After that, I won election. She was disappointed and she was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I need somebody. Can you find somebody? And I told her that I would look around. Okay, what did you do next? I found somebody that I thought would be good for the job. I called her and said, hey, he's a great guy, all around good guy. Again, didn't read the polygraph. He has worked at the jail, and I told her that I had checked with the previous jailer and nothing. No, I guess, did she know that he was planning to become a deputy sheriff by that point? Yes. And so I guess she agreed to hire him as far as as far as I know. And you actually trained Ben Fields for the EKCS position, correct? Answer, I let him shadow me. Okay. What do you recall of that? Basically, when I do my house arrest on Wednesday at 4:30, have everybody report, I would show him the paperwork, the forms, see everything is different now, they do GPS now. I don't believe that I was ever part of GPS. My old first house arrest box was almost as big as that TV. I mean, no joke, it was a white box this big. You had to have a manual key to turn it on, and you had to have a phone landline. There wasn't none of this tracking people. It would only let them get 100 feet outside of their residence, and it would tell you if they had a violation, cut the strap, unplug the box, stuff like that. So I went over all that paperwork with him and all that stuff. Okay. I showed him how to hook up, how to collect the money, do the receipt, mail it in. When I first took over, I would have to mail in money orders because Patty didn't have a bank account and would mail in the money order, and I would mail in the money orders to her. Okay. Were you aware of Ben Fields receiving any other training aside from the training that he got from you? I am aware. Okay. Were there any EKCS policies or procedures that you reviewed with Mr. Fields? No, I didn't. Aside from that initial conversation with Patty Stockham that you already described, were there any other discussion that you had with her about hiring Ben Fields? Not that I recall. I guess, were you aware as prior to February of 2022, were you aware of Ben Fields performing services for EKCS while he was in the courtroom and during a period of time when he was working as bailiff? Mickey says, I don't understand your question. Okay, prior to February of 2022, when you terminated Mr. Fields, were you aware that there were times when he would perform services for East Kentucky Correctional Solutions while he was also in the courtroom and working as bailiff? One more time, sorry, I'm a little confused on your question. I'm not trying to be difficult, but she goes, okay. Prior to February of 2022, when you terminated Fields, were you aware that there were times when he was performing services for EKCS while also in the courtroom and working as bailiff? Were you aware of that? He says, I don't recall. Okay. Mr. Shaw, you're not, I guess I will just object to form. Okay. Were you aware that Fields performed services for EKCS while wearing a Letcher County Sheriff's Deputy uniform? And then Mr. Shaw goes, if you know, I mean. Answer, ask your question one more time. Sorry, I'm not trying to be difficult. You bounce around a little bit for me. Like I said, a little bit of stress. He just described that between 2 p.m. and 10 p.m. on a certain day, he had gotten 186 phone calls. The dude worked under stress. Why is he complaining about stress? She asked that question, what, 4 times? 3 times? Can you repeat the question? It's so funny. Okay. She goes, I understand, I do, and I'm happy to repeat anytime. Wow, so much patience. Were you aware that Ben Fields, was performing services for EKCS while he was wearing a Letcher County Sheriff's Deputy uniform? He says, no, I don't recall. You don't recall being aware of that? If Ben Fields was wearing a Letcher County Sheriff's Deputy uniform while performing services for EKCS, would that have been a violation of the Letcher County Sheriff's Department policies? I need some clarification. He's really being evasive here. How long do I go? Okay. A couple more pages. Okay. If Ben Fields working someone up on an ankle monitor, doing something that was within his duties for EKCS while wearing a Letcher County Sheriff's deputy uniform, would that have been a violation of the Letcher County Sheriff's Department policies, yes or no? I mean, when is he doing that? I don't get your question. She's just, at any time, if there's some sort of decision, is it 4:30 when I got off at sheriff's office? My sheriff didn't, it's a weird form of the way he speaks, very Southern. Is it 4:30 when I got at sheriff's office? My sheriff didn't require me to go all the way home and come back with a personal truck and personal clothing. Okay, but now if I was out after hours, I was in personal clothing in my truck at times. If it was something on the way home, my sheriff would give me permission and, hey, yeah, you can do that. They would let us go to the grocery store. She goes, that wasn't quite my question, but that is helpful to know. So you are the sheriff? Yes. And Ben Fields is the EKCS home incarceration officer? Uh-huh. Is he allowed to perform services for EKCS while wearing a Letcher County Sheriff's deputy uniform? Mr. Shaw comes in again. She's talking at the courthouse or anytime. She is talking at the courthouse or anytime. I understand what you're saying. And he goes, if somebody is in court and they say, hey, she goes, so does it matter in different situations? So does it matter? In different situations, it is okay. In other situations, it is not okay. Is that what you're saying? Mr. Shaw, did he ever call you and ask you for permission to stop on the way home to check something out? Yes. Like you did. So it is the same practice that you had? Yes. Sorry. And then Ms. Baxter goes, so you were saying that if Ben Fields were to be wearing his deputy sheriff's uniform while performing services for EKCS, he did it with your permission? Mr. Shaw says, objection, go ahead if you know the answer. He says, I don't recall. I think that's as far as I wanted to go on that one. So she's trying to get to the bottom of it, that he's doing both jobs at the same time. He's wearing a uniform. I think that's what she's trying to, I think that's what's trying to happen here. Let me hide this, bring this back. Let's see what, Golden Spudlet is saying he's dodging the question. Tammy is saying he's just incompetent a bit. Demon Hugger says he seems to have difficulty with overlapping time frames. Let's see if there's... Yeah, I think that's all we got. Yeah, so good comments, guys. Good comments. All right. This is the last part that I want to read, and it is pretty darn short. It starts at page 92. You can get over to page 92. Page 92, line 12. Okay, Ms. Baxter asking the question again. And I think they've got the policy handbook out or something. She goes, this looks to be a sexual misconduct policy, and I'm looking down under definitions of sexual misconduct. This includes sexual activity while on duty or stemming from official duty. Do you see that? Yes. And it also includes use of official position and official resources to obtain information for purposes of pursuing sexual conduct. Do you see that? Yes. That, by the way, guys, I think cops do it a lot, where they pull over somebody that they think is attractive and they use their official resources to be able to contact that person. It's completely not cool. All right. I am looking at the second page now. A police officer, sheriff's deputy shall not, I'm reading from D. Okay. Shall not engage in sexual conduct with another person who is in the custody of law, as such officer has supervisory or disciplinary authority over such other person. Do you see that? Yes. Do you agree with me that Sabrina Atkins and Jennifer Hill, while they were on home incarceration, were they in the custody of law according to this policy? Oh, I hit the wrong button. Jennifer Hill, not Ned Pillersdorf. So do you agree with me that Sabrina Atkins and Jennifer Hill, while they were on home incarceration, were they in the custody of law according to this policy? Yes. And did Ben Fields have supervisory or disciplinary authority over Sabrina Atkins and Jennifer Hill while they were on home incarceration? Yes. Where am I? Keep going. So on subsection E, right below the one that I was just reading, it talks about sworn officers receiving specific training about sexual misconduct. Do you see that? Yes. So what kind of specific training did the Letcher County Sheriff's Department provide in the time that you've been sheriff regarding this policy? None that I recall. Do you believe that Ben Fields violated this policy based on his actions that are subject to this litigation? Yes, absolutely. So, yeah, I can understand why Mickey wigged out. I don't understand why he did what he did. But I can understand this is a high pressure deposition. And we're going to continue this tomorrow, by the way, guys. We're going to do one more, I guess, stream about this. Let me go through a couple of comments real quick. Mooney says, Gavin, at some point I want to hear about your day job teacher thing too. Yeah, I'm still not, one of the difficulties in doing investigative journalism is that nobody wants to go on record. Nobody wants to stand up and say, yeah, I know a thing, and I will go on record telling you the thing. Most people want to go, I know a thing, but you can't use my name and you can't say that I told you. And that's been really frustrating. But there is a teacher that was let go by a Western Pennsylvania school district, female teacher, who allegedly had problems like this like 20 years ago. Allegedly. She was let go, and they didn't say the specific reason she was let go, but the allegation is that she had inappropriate relations with at least 3 high school boys in that district. And here in Pennsylvania, a school district is typically one campus. Sometimes they're spread out where you've got a couple of elementary schools going into then one middle school and one high school that's on one campus. But typically, especially in rural areas, it's all on one campus. Gavin, what inspired you to do these true crime investigations? It's not an inspiring story. It was the middle of COVID, and my friend Rick Tracewell, he and I had all of our clients lost their businesses because of COVID. So because our clients lost their business, we pretty much were losing our businesses. And Rick and I were talking on the phone one day, and he goes, maybe we should do a YouTube channel, just trying to think of ways that we could earn a living. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. I did a little research like I always do. And I came back to him. I said, yeah, I'm interested. What should we do it on? I mean, I raise chickens and rabbits, and I'm a pilot, and, I'm a software developer, and, systems engineer. Well, what would we do? And he goes, what about true crime? And then it was his idea. I was like, okay, I had never been a true crime consumer. I never watched court TV. I never watched unsolved mysteries. In fact, I kind of made fun of my little sister for doing it. She loved that stuff. And he goes, and so I was a little apprehensive, but he goes, what if we tried to actually help solve crimes? And I went, well, now you're talking. That sounds like fun. And so we started a channel called Solve Crimes with Rick and Gavin. And we did that for about a year. And I think we grew it to maybe 1,000-ish subscribers. And we were really working hard to try to solve crimes. And, after about a year of doing it together, it became apparent that it wasn't going to work out together. So I left. He kept the channel. He now calls it "It's About Damn Crime." He doesn't do all that much on it that I've seen lately. And then I started my channel. That's how I did it, and I love it. Like the very first time I looked at a case, I did it with Rick. It was Judith Ann Hawkery. I had to bring up the Hawkery case again because I think he's taken all the videos down from his channel. The Hawkery case is something else, guys. It is something else. It's from the 1970s, and it's just nuts. I should do that. Anyway, I fell in love with the process, fell in love with the investigation, and it was through that that I got my first job as an investigative reporter. And that's what I've been doing ever since. So yeah, that's how I did that. God's secretary. God's secretary. Wow. Well, thank you from descending from on high to join us here on YouTube. I mean, maybe you work remotely. Maybe you're not on high. Maybe you are here on Earth working remotely. Okay. God's secretary says, my granddaughter is in 9th grade. While watching her cheer, I looked around at the little boys on the court and told my daughter there's no way I could ever be thirsty enough to go for that. That is great. That is great. Oh, too funny. Robin Bernardi and Gavin, and look at you now. That is so funny. Joyce asks, I've not been following the case. Why did he shoot the judge? That, Joyce, is the $64,000 question. We still don't know. What we know is that he was deposed on Monday. He was acting strangely on Thursday. Right there, he draws down and shoots the judge, I think 7 or 8 times until he is dead. And he has been in the Leon County Jail ever since. It is crazy. It is crazy. Chrissy Akers is starting at the beginning. Yeah, put it on time and a half and have a good time. Let's see. What is that? Thank you. She was happy that you answered. I don't know who you're talking to there. Sorry, Autumn. I wasn't following you there. Okay, guys. So tomorrow we're going to take a look at the second half of this deposition. Going to get into some of the details there. Probably be about an hour like we've done tonight. We're going to go on to Ben Fields' deposition, to Sabrina, so Mr. Fields. We're going to go on to Sabrina Adkins' deposition. Also, so I've got those all scheduled out, but I might be dropping other things in there. Like, for example, on Monday, I'm going to be having a forensics expert, a former FBI forensics agent, joining me to talk about the Ellen Greenberg case. So that's going to be happening. I'm so excited to have Julia Kelly on with me. She is amazing. She is dropping episodes right now on her podcast about the Ellen Greenberg case. We're going to be talking about that on Monday. If you guys don't know about the Ellen Greenberg case, Ellen was a soon-to-be married school teacher in the Philadelphia area who was stabbed 20 times, 10 times in the back of her head. It's been a crazy roller coaster of a ride. I've been on it for the last 3 or 4 years. We're going to talk about that on Monday. So a lot of stuff going on the channel. If you haven't subscribed already, please do. What God's secretary. So, okay. Although my husband thinks I'm from heaven, I've been a church secretary for 20 plus years. Okay, that's good. That's good. Good on you. I love it. And that's a great handle. We have both God's secretary and demon hugger in the live chat. That's pretty funny. Good on you. Okay, so guys, we'll be back tomorrow, 7:30 p.m. Eastern time to continue on this case. And then we're going to keep rolling on these depositions. Please come back and join me. Last thing I want to do is plug the website, gavinfish.com. You can always reach out to me there. Just click on this little thing if you ever want to tell me something about a case or anything. Crime Cod is my website that is a true crime website. It's growing as far as its daily views are growing to a respectable amount. You can sign up for the newsletter on Crime Cod if that is your thing. Also, we are on Facebook. Just look up the Fish Tank. There's about 3,500 of us there. So if you haven't done that, please join us there. And with that, guys, I will bid you adieu. Thank you very much for being with me tonight, and I will see you on the next one. Take care. Thank you very much for watching this video. If you liked what you saw, please consider subscribing. And if you have any questions or comments, please leave them below.